Hi, Megan Dean, Director of Education for Roaring Fork Conservancy. Today we're going to learn all about rivers, how they flow, how they cause erosion and deposition, and what we can do to keep our rivers healthy. We're going to start out by running a demonstration, and I have built a beautiful little riverbed here, not as beautiful as our real rivers, but this is a model, and in science we often use models when we're not able to use the real thing. The question that we're asking in this investigation is, which will cause more erosion? A river flowing in a straight line or a river flowing in a curvy line? A couple of words you need to know before we start our investigation. The first word is erosion. Erosion is a process of wind or water moving rock and soil. And in the mountains, we see that all the time. Our canyons are caused by erosion. We can always see erosion when we go down to the riverbanks. Even our topsoil is often created by soil being eroded and compacted and rocks falling apart. Our second vocabulary word that's going to be really useful to know is deposition. Deposition is a process of where material being transported by a river is deposited. So it's kind of like when you go to the bank, or your mom and dad go to the bank and deposit money into their bank account. Our rivers actually move soil and move sediment and objects and deposit them in other places. So this is a river that I've created, giving you a closer view. And we have our river channel, and that is in the middle. And I've lined it with trimmings off my oak trees. And those trimmings are acting like our trees that line the banks of our river, and our willows and our vegetation. And I've also built this on a slope. So at the beginning of the river, the headwaters, it's high, and then as it goes down the river channel, it's sloped down. The other thing you'll notice is that my little ribbon of green here is in an S curve. So there's lots of curves in my river because a lot of times our rivers are very curvy. As you can see, if you look at the river, I've turned the water on and we're starting to get some flow here. Our water is flowing down the slope. It's called gradient, and it's reaching the end, almost at the end, almost at the end. And there it is at the end of our channel. What it's doing right now is it's spreading out. And if you come in really close, we'll zoom very, very close, and you'll see that there are little bits of grass and little bits of sand, we call that sediment, moving through our river channel. And it's being deposited here at the end. Now that is a big river cat. You have to be careful of those. They can cause a lot of damage. So I have let the water flow for a full 2 minutes. I was timing it. We always want to time things and keep things the same when we're trying to investigate things with science, so we don't have too many things changing. And you'll notice as we come down through our river to the end, this is our lake or our ocean where rivers end. It's creating what we call a delta. So a delta is where the sand and the sediment build up at the end, and there's usually really rich soil. And as we come up to the beginning, so now it's ran for like a good probably 3 to 4 minutes, we're seeing on the sides here that the river is holding intact. There's not a lot of erosion. The river's not really changing its shape. There is some sediment moving, but the banks of the river are holding really strong. So now we're going to do the same exact thing, but we're going to change something. And that change is, in a science experiment, is called a variable. What we're going to do is we're going to take away the vegetation and we're going to straighten that river. And we're going to see if that changes the erosion and changes how much sediment is deposited at the end of our river. So we're just gonna pull out our trees. I feel so strong, look how easy it is. It's like I'm picking up treetops. We're actually going to pull this out. And if you live near a sandbox or have a nice cleared off area in your yard, you can do the same thing at home. You can also use like baking tins to do this as well, just by throwing sand in here. Okay. So now I want you to think back to that initial question we asked. Which will cause more erosion? A river flowing in a straight line or a curvy line? And I'd like you to take a moment and think about what you just observed. So observations in science are really important. And if you would like, you can take notes and write down what you observed. What were some of the things that we saw? We saw a little bit of sediment flowing down the creek. We saw the river curving, and we didn't see a lot of erosion off the sides of the river because of those strong roots and vegetation and tree systems. So we're into part 2 of our question in our science investigation. I have changed the river, and if you take a look down here, the river is now straight, and I've removed all of the vegetation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the water. We're going to start our river, and we're going to allow the water to flow for the exact amount of time that we did last time, 2 minutes, because we want to have everything the same except for our variable, which was curvy, and now the river is straight. We had a second variable. We also had our support system from our trees and our roots. So let's go ahead and start this. Same amount of flow, and you can see the river is flowing down, reaching the end, which rivers flow into lakes or oceans usually. So there it's going into the mouth of the river, and you can see that the sediment is starting to flow through the river. So now it has been 2 minutes, and as you can see, we're having a lot more erosion. Some of the banks are falling, calving into the river. We're having something called undercutting, which means that the river is flowing into the side and eroding the rock, leaving a little cliff-type ledge, which then eventually falls in. There's a big one. So if a home or a road was right along this river, what would be happening? Would there be damage? There'd be a lot of damage. And all of those things are very expensive to fix. Now as we get to the bottom of this, you'll notice that there is a lot of deposition. There's a lot of material here, and it's filling up quickly. Our river is also getting wider. This water has a lot more sediment in it. We often call that turbidity, which makes it really difficult for wildlife to flourish. So it covers up eggs. It makes it hard for fish and aquatic insects to breathe. So river erosion is really what we want to avoid, other than what happens naturally. So now that we've done our investigation and seen how erosion works, seen how water transports sediment and creates deposition, go ahead and write your conclusion based off your observations. The conclusion is an answer to the initial question. So, what creates more erosion? A straight river or a curvy river? Thanks for joining us today, and feel free to check out our next investigation where we look at what kind of bank material is the best for healthy rivers.